Hello and welcome, Star Wars fans, to this week's episode of Duel of the Ranks, a show we debate takes so hot that they'd melt a planet with twin suns. I am your host, Brody, joined by my co host, Brian, as we attempt to discover what story is truly the best from a galaxy far, far away. On this week's episode, we're going to be discussing ranks and hot takes from the Clone Wars Season 2, Episodes 4 through 8, The Return to Geonosis. By the end of this episode, we'll have a definitive answer on where these pieces of Star Wars content ranks amongst the rest. Brian, Amanda is still gone. She's taking care of herself. Nothing Beyonce related this week. She's just trying to
Nonetheless, sorely missed.
sorely missed, but she'll be back next week, probably. I think so. Otherwise, we'll just
Hope so.
Otherwise, we're just gonna keep doing it, us two. No, she'll be back. She'll be back next week. It's gonna be a whole lot of fun. But she did miss a fantastic arc on the Return to Geonosis. I mean, I don't know what you thought of these, but
I think I might have missed an incredible arc too. I watched episode 4, which was Senate Spy. Was that not next on our list?
episodes 4 through 8 were on the list.
Well, good thing I watched ahead, but yeah, this is the one that I've been ranting about. Did we just skip Senate Spy then?
No,
'Cause I
Senate
do
Spy is
not-
episode 4. And then there's 5, 6, 7, 8.
But they're not all part of the same arc. Oh, okay. Okay. Well, at least I got some stuff to say about Senate Spy. And I do remember a lot from the Geonosis arc. I'm just sad that I missed out on really spending a lot of time with
I
them.
watched so many episodes of the Clone Wars. Yeah, it's 4, 5, 6, and 7. In fact, you know what? I haven't even watched episode 8 now that I'm looking at it. That was so much to watch this week. I'm looking at it too. I'm like, oh, I don't have a number for episode 8. This is the longest arc yet. So we're just going to have to double back and talk about the rest of it. So this is part 1 of 2, talking about the Return to Geonosis. Wow. Yeah, Amanda missed an arc, and apparently we did too. So
I'm not too surprised. It is absolutely the most boring episode of the entire show. So if there was one that we were just going to gloss over, it would probably be Senate Spy.
Well, their other ones are not that boring. You did just watch the most boring one in Senate Spy.
Yes. Yeah, and the Geonosis is incredible. I love the visuals.
Yes.
You see some a-hole Jedis. You get to really see that, wow, some of them are just total, like, doorknobs, just not likable characters.
All right, well, lay it on me. Let's go through. What was Senate Spy all about?
Senate Spy is kind of a repeat of an episode that just happened 4 episodes ago, where Anakin and Padme are trying to do their husband-wife things and get interrupted by business. Yep. And then there's Yoda tries to get Padme to spy on Clovis, who's an old friend of hers. And of course, she doesn't want to do it because she has integrity, unlike the Jedi. So she refuses, but then they convince Anakin to convince her, and he kind of shows a little bit of his controlling side, which is actually a very important theme in Star Wars that I'm going to touch on a lot later. But the rest of the episode is, he convinces Padme to spy on Clovis. There's the Trade Federation dudes involved because politics and money and espionage, and basically Padme gets poisoned, almost dies. They get an antidote because there had to be something to risk at one point in this episode without a single laser or lightsaber ignition or explosion. And then basically what happens? Clovis gets kind of snubbed by Anakin in the end. They steal some data that proves that he was a spy, and they leave him on the planet to fend for himself. It was kind of cold what Anakin does being there. But Padme's fine, and the Republic's fine. Clovis probably not.
Whoa, and we have KG in the comments who said she did most of the homework. Well, guess what? So did we. I really thought it was 4. I saw episodes 4 through 8, and I thought 4 episodes. I watched 4 through 7, and I missed number 8. And I remember thinking, like, this can't be the end of the arc. And then I went and did something else. But ultimately, yes, we have that in the beginning. I do really enjoy this arc because that first episode that we're talking about here, yeah, they set up there's plans, and they realize that this banking clan is in with the Geonosian plans for these whatever's going on at this facility to produce more droids. So the next episode, they find where this location is. They go back to Geonosis and they try to raid it. But in doing so, the Jedi are just the Jedi, the clone troopers, just their entire force is just obliterated as they try to get down. But eventually they do, and they break through, and they decide to put together plans for how they're going to blow up this facility. Well, once they do, they decide to use the Padawans with Ahsoka and what is the other one who down the road kind of does some
Barriss.
Barriss
Great
Offee.
character.
Yes. So they go in and they do some sneaky stuff, and they, eventually they're able to blow up the facility. Anakin never lost faith, whereas Barriss Offee's master, I'm blanking
Luminara
on.
Unduli.
There you go. There you go. She's very quick to say, yeah, she's dead. I'm okay with that. I've accepted it. Anakin's like, I haven't accepted yet. She's like, and then when eventually they do find out that the Padawans are alive, she's like, yeah, that's awesome. And Anakin's like, see, I told you they were alive. He's like, no, I'm just ready for her. I'm okay. I'm accepted that she'll die someday. And I'm like, yeah, but you were like really quick to accept that. Like, you didn't try. She's
not a single tear, huh?
Like, I feel like they're fading. I feel they're fading from the Force. Just there's not enough time. Geez, just you didn't even try. So anyway, I will say, so yeah, that happens. And then I ended on an episode where they decide to go to follow, is it Ungar Plot? Is it
Ungar Plot? Yeah.
But they end up following him to
Puggle the Lesser, sorry.
Yeah. They end up I know there's
Ungar Plot. That's the guy from Force Awakens.
Okay.
Your confidence got me. Puggle the Lesser is the Geonosian.
Well, they end up
1/4 portion.
So they follow him.
That's all right.
He was everywhere. So they end up following Poggle, the Lesser, and they're like trying to take him prisoner and bring him back and take him in custody to bring him back before the Republic. But in doing so, they end up coming to this, I guess it's not like a church of sorts, but it's some sort of temple that they've got, and you're not really sure what they're like worshiping. And then you get to the bottom and you see the mother, and there's these dead Geonosians that are being, I guess, mind controlled, and that's what her whole goal is to control the minds of these Jedi. And so anyway, that's kind of the plot there, and that's where things ended for me. So excited. I know where the next episode goes. They go back on the ship. Yep, and there's they take over the brains. And so it's interesting how this goes. It starts from a romance, and as KG mentions in the comments, it's kind of cringy in the beginning, and then it moves from there to this war story to now it feels like Alien, and the next episode's kind of this like thriller. So interesting how they kind of move around in all these episodes, but I definitely found it enjoyable.
I wouldn't consider the Senate spy part of. Is it directly connected? I guess it is kind of with the droid factory, right? So I guess technically it is. It's just so disconnected from the others because they're so intense and action packed.
Yeah. It does feel like its own thing, and it is extremely cringy. Since you did watch that one, I think we should fairly dive into that one first. You mentioned how Anakin is really controlling. Break that down for me.
Yeah, so if you go way back to the origin, as KG says, reminded her of episode 2, how the romance was cringy. The first line that Anakin, tries to sneak in there on her is one of my favorite lines in all of Star Wars. Attachment is forbidden. Possession is forbidden. Compassion, which I would define as unconditional love, is central to a Jedi's life. So you might say that we're encouraged to love. So that's like out the gate. He's already planned this entire romance out in his head. He knows what he wants, and he's here to get it at that point in his, in his life. But in this episode, in episode 3, where he goes wrong is trying to control things that are not in his control. And that's kind of what every philosophy is about. Stoicism, Taoism, like all talk on this kind of stuff. Those are two of my favorites. And they both apply to Star Wars really directly. All the Jedi philosophy is kind of based on Taoism, and then Stoicism has a lot of themes that are just universal. So basically the idea is that by focusing on externalities, like it is that's what creates tension in our minds, and cognitive dissonance is kind of what drives anger and frustration and all these negative emotions. Basically the dark side is what Yoda is warning about when he talks, when he lays down the code. That if you try to control each other, sure, Jedi can have little relationships, kind of. They're allowed to have flings. Like, they know that those urges are biological and universal, so they're not trying to completely suppress Jedi's emotions and their physicality. But by limiting your control over them, by removing yourself from trying to control or possess other people, that's how you prevent yourself from really becoming too overly attached to things, to the extent that the dark side could be used to manipulate you. So that's exactly how Palpatine manipulates Anakin. And the third one is because Anakin's trying to control this prophecy, which really is not in his control, because the future is unclear at the moment. The visions keep changing, and of course you don't see the final version. It looks very different every time he goes through this vision in his head. But the way Palpatine is able to get his hooks in is very early on. Actually, he knows that Anakin just has that natural possessiveness and defensiveness over his loved ones. It goes all the way back to his mother. But in this episode, I think it's played off really well, and it shows the side of him that tries to tell her, no, I'm the man in this relationship. I get to tell you what to do. And that's like major red flags. I think there's similar vibes in, the other one that this one is a copy of from the end of season 1. I think that theme is very prevalent throughout their relationship. They're always trying to have this give and take of Anakin's like this warrior, this super intense, like strong, successful dude, and he thinks his way is the best way, of course, because he's the chosen one. He's got this ego, and that's what kind of leads him into this position of like, well, I'm justified in beating this guy up or intimidating or using the dark side because I love her. And then that's the first kind of snowball effect that eventually tumbles into him killing younglings for her.
Yeah, I mean, this episode did do a good job of indicating, like, yes, he's. I personally, I think, I don't know how wrong I find maybe possessiveness. If we want to label it as that, we can. When you're married to someone, like, not enjoying the sight of right there on screen, seeing some other dude trying to mac with your wife, like, yeah,
Well,
that's,
yeah.
like, I'm for it. Like, I'm like, all right, Anakin, there you go. Put him in his seat. Like, didn't mind that at all. And Anakin, I did feel like the biggest thing that I think he failed to understand, he's like, yeah, duty first, and which totally worked. But when it came at his own expense, now he's got to follow around, and it was just like, oh, like, kind of a double standard thing there, because he's like, yes, more than like, I'm the man. I felt like it was more like, well, I'm the Jedi.
Yeah.
I'm what I do is important, kind of thing. And you talk for a living, kind of thing. And so that was kind of the vibe I got out of it. But yeah, and she was willing to throw herself in harm's way. He didn't want her to, because he loves her and doesn't want to see her die. But
Logical.
and she almost did. But of course,
True.
there was an anecdote, or antidote for it, and I didn't really know what they were trying to get from the banking clan. Like, oh yeah, we're going to poison her, but then we're going to be surprised about it. But we will have an antidote, but only if well, by doing that, you clearly are showing your hand, saying whatever you want from this banking group. You clearly are the ones who poisoned Padme. So in the event where he's like, yeah, I'm going to bring this to the Republic, he's like, oh, you'll pay for this. It's like, he has enough proof to suggest you probably poisoned a senator.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, when it comes to Anakin's actions this episode, I just feel like this episode, and as well as others in this arc, Obi-Wan always says, "You think with your lightsaber." He's just really passionate. He runs in guns a-blazing. It's really all about him. He doesn't really think too much. He's kind of just right now painted as that jock.
Mhm.
And that's, you know, I guess that's what Padme's into. But anyway, hey,
It sells.
it's
It's the confidence. That's what does it.
see, I always thought he had more of a mind and like a strategy mind. And maybe that gets displayed later in the Clone Wars, but right now this paints him out to be kind of a dumb block. These
Yeah,
episodes.
he's got a lot of self-importance. I think that's probably the distinction that we're trying to make here. Is yeah, I kind of overstepped by saying, "Oh, I'm a man. I'm the one. I'm way their pants in the relationship." But I think it's more so. Yeah, it is just because he thinks of himself as like this savior kind of character, and
Yeah.
that's also very dark sidey of him.
Yeah, it's all about him. The other thing I don't really understand about the Jedi or just like people in general with like when it comes to religion is, and I understand when people are like, yeah, we're not going to at all in any capacity get married. But hey, you can hook up. It's
Mhm.
like I feel like that makes it more complicated. Like
It should
I
be
don't
all or
know.
nothing.
They're like, no, no, we're gonna like simplify this by not pulling in those emotions. I'm like, I feel like that happens anyway, but hey, I don't know.
Yeah, well, you see in the High Republic now that their relationships are a lot more above board than they ever seem in the prequels.
Hmm.
So I think that is something that Yoda's leadership actually, kind of led to was the dissolution of that passion that you're talking about, and that's what weakens the Jedi Order ultimately.
Yeah.
Is that they've kind of detached themselves from their actual purpose. They're the serving the
Mm,
universe. Like in Avatar, I'm watching the finale, like currently partway through it. It's so good. It says the same thing about you are here for the world. This is your purpose. We serve. It's not just about you. You have to sacrifice your spiritual
mm,
fulfillment in order to save the world. Aang, that's your task is to kill the Fire Lord. And at the end of the day, spoiler alert, he refuses, and he's just a good guy. Um,
yeah.
and he ends up saving the world anyways. So that's kind of where the
Mm,
Jedi went wrong, is that they did let the Clone Wars deter their purity, or distill their purity. Is that a better word?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I mean with Anakin, I mean there's so many things that this show does really well at painting like why he would turn evil. Like in his mind, he's like, I didn't want Padme to go. You're asking me to take advantage of her trust in me
Mhm.
to get her to do this thing for your benefit. Now, it's wartime, so both sides could argue the moral, the ethical code of what they're doing. But
The utilitarian perspective.
yeah, I mean, look, it's war. I mean, it's tough. But then you could also make the larger argument to say, well, the Jedi shouldn't even be involved at that point then because, ultimate peacekeepers, right? Not
Mhm.
warmongers.
Right, and that they
So,
should be at the mercy of the Senate,
yeah,
especially if the
exactly.
Senate's controlled by the Sith.
And now we're asking another Jedi, a peacekeeper, to basically, if you don't want to say the word manipulate, at least coerce a senator, which in of itself, if framed correctly, is not necessarily wrong. It's just, we're very clearly using people. Is I guess
Mhm,
the biggest thing here. So, um, again, you can argue whether right or wrong. That's up to you. But I don't
mhm,
know. There's some other things that I thought were kind of disturbing. Like I think were meant to be more of a joke, but I don't even watch this episode. But the next one, uh, Anakin and Ahsoka have a kill count at the end of the battle.
yeah.
Very like Legolas and Gimli.
Yep.
And then Kiadi Mundi chimes in with his number being the highest total. And I was like, when it's droids, that's one thing. But it's really kind of weird when it's Jedi being like, haha, I got 55. I got 60. I got 65. I'm like,
They're
if you
sentient beings.
I'm like, don't you have like some sort of remorse for the loss of life? Nope.
Not if they're gross.
Not if they're notions.
Yeah, they're
We
pretty
laugh.
intelligent too. Poggle the Lesser is actually like a pretty important figurehead throughout most of the Clone Wars. He's in Revenge of the Sith. You know, he survives all of that and is hanging out with all those other important separatists. So
Was he one of the ones on Mustafar?
I believe so. I believe there's several Geonosians that follow him too, that Anakin cuts through.
Okay.
But yeah, they kind of lump them in with battle droids. I mean, interesting note here is that the Geonosians were retroactively designed to be the inspiration for the battle droids.
Really?
Yeah. That's the similar face shape kind of thing going on.
I wonder why.
I think that, I think they got kind of redesigned. You know, it's not as close as like one of the original designs was, but yeah, they're supposed to be kind of their creators. They're expert droid builders, expert manufacturers. Obviously, you know, they build the Death Star. So what can you say? Or they build the plans for the Death Star. They do build the Death Star. The Death Star is built on Geonosis. I guess I just don't know for sure if, you know, how directly their workforce was involved. I would guess heavily involved.
Yeah.
That's kind of
that and all the prisoners from Andor.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, these big hives of, you know, just cheap labor is what builds the Death Star.
Free labor. You jaywalked. You're going to jail forever.
They have to, you know, feed them, I guess, you know, their little through the tube thing. So they're not totally free. Yeah. And they're gonna get out someday, right? Nope.
Unless if you can swim. I still thought that was one of the most awesome premises in like anything Star Wars. No one's wearing shoes, and if you're on the floor when you shouldn't be, you're gonna die. And I'm just like, yeah, wow, like this is wild storytelling. So kudos to Andor folks. When you watch these Clone Wars episodes, do you feel excitement like, oh yeah, I get to watch this, or is it like kind of a feeling of fatigue? Like
it depends on the episode.
Yeah.
So like Senate Spy, I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna try to get as much out of this as I can. But then the Geonosis arc is next, and I'm like, oh yeah. Or just mostly the landing at Point Rain has just got some of the coolest action sequences in the entire show. I think the big wall, right? Isn't that?
Yeah.
Yeah, the big wall is so cool.
Yeah, I know.
Love that scene.
I don't know. I was watching a TikTok recently, and there was just like some guy, and he's like, he's supposed to be like a pilot on one of those. What are the clone gunships called?
LAAT.
Yeah, they're coming down. He's like, you look around, you're flying into Geonosis, and you realize none of the Jedi mains are on your ship with you. And the song, it ain't me, it ain't me. The whole thing just blows up.
Yeah,
it's like oh yeah, like everyone. The beginning of that show too, he's like, good thing the clankers can't aim or something like that, and then boom, whole ship goes down. I'm just like, wow.
Yikes.
All right, like this is real. No, I actually gave the technical aspects a pretty good mark for that episode, just because even though the animation's not like, I should say the modeling for the animation, like the models themselves, it's in the lighting, it's not the best. There's still so much that's going on in that episode that you just know it took so much time for those animators to just throw everything in there to make this feel as cinematic as possible for that Battle on Geonosis Part 2.
The Return to Geonosis, yeah. Like, how do you top that scene in Attack of the Clones? And I'm just going to find every excuse to love on Attack of the Clones today, man.
You know, it's anything with Geonosis was fun. It will always be painful for me. So there's a few things in this world that are just like super painful to think about as a fan. One of them is the San Antonio Spurs in Game 6 when they so totally had it won, but then gave up a 5-point lead with 28 seconds. Raylan hits a 3. We lose the finals. The next thing is Jango Fett's jetpack not working. I will never not have a problem with Jango Fett deciding, here's all of these Jedi down here. I've got these 2 pistols. I'm going to rock it. And like, I don't know, ultimately, I feel like it was kind of, he wussed out, right? If you're going to jump in knowing you're just going to fly away at first the moment a Jedi approaches you, well, why go down anyway? Why not just stay up there and like,
Are you listening, Battlefront players?
yeah, like literally just stay up there and camp with your blasters and just do target practice. Like, why did Django need to go down there, Brian? Why?
Camping is lame, dude. You gotta push. You gotta push the objective, man. You
Is
can
it,
farm kills all you want, but it's not gonna win you the battle.
they lost. They did lose the battle, mind you.
It's true.
So I don't know. I mean,
Django did also get messed up by the Reek, by the way. I
yeah,
think we
what
have to
messed up
give
his
the monsters
jetpack?
credit. Yeah. So I mean, he's a big, cool monster. Kind of looks like a Texas Longhorn with this big old thing, one in the middle too.
Yeah, like Django, I think the biggest thing with him, and you can see it with Boba too later on, the dude's just cocky. Like he takes out the dinosaur Jedi, looking whatever it is, and whatever that Jedi Master's
Yeah.
name was, and then he swings his blaster pistol around, and it's just a big show off, and he's like, "Oh, see all those Jedi Masters down there? Nothing. Watch this." And yeah, unexpected things happened as they should in a battle, and he got wrecked. And it's always annoying to me to think that this guy, he let it get to his head. He got some money, he had a nice house, and he got super successful. Pride comes before the fall of your head. That's just
Oof.
Django. Django.
Just Django things.
I don't think Mando would have gotten punked out like that. I think
Not with his full Beskar armor and staff and his crazy sniper rifle. He's got so much intense gear.
Well, you also know that Mando, if he were in Attack of the Clones, he wouldn't have had his head cut off, because when you are fighting against Mando, you're only allowed to hit his Beskar, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
So
Rule. Can't
maybe,
aim for the between the shoulder and the chest. That's where their armor's weakest.
and apparently nobody does, especially if you're at the end of Book of Boba Fett and you're standing in front of that cantina. You're just only going to shoot Boba and Mando's armor. So, but yeah, that's not Django. Going
wouldn't
back,
want to hurt each other. You wouldn't want to hurt each other. They're not trying to kill each other. It's just a fight,
yeah, until you get Samuel L. Jackson involved, someone's gonna die.
Lose a hand and a head.
Yeah, something's a limb, some phalange, something is gonna get lost, tossed, just yeeted into the sky. Dude, that's another scene that really bothers me in Star Wars. Like Samuel L. Jackson, he's like so close to killing the Emperor, and Anakin just instinctively just takes off his hand, and I'm just like,
for love.
What I don't understand is, why did Mace Windu have to cock his hand back? It's not like you needed pressure. It's a lightsaber.
Could have just gone.
He could have just booped him and he's dead. Like, it's a lightsaber. Why'd you have to swing it back? Like, oh.
Well, maybe it was the ghost Jedi holding him back. That's what I'm picturing there, is like a bunch of spirit. It's Qui-Gon saying, "No, don't do it. Killing is not the Jedi way."
Oh my.
Qui-Gon would have done it. That's not Qui-Gon, but some other Jedi was some purist who's virtue signaling up there, just pretending he's a better Jedi than Mace Windu. Says, "No, don't kill the one chance we have to save the galaxy right now." And
oh man, what do you think would have happened though if Qui-Gon didn't die in Phantom Menace?
I think
Do you think Anakin still goes and becomes Darth Vader?
No shot. And that's kind of the point of the Duel of the Fates, is that it was, Qui-Gon was the one Jedi that could see through the Jedi's flaws and said, "No, F you, Council. I'm a step away from my spot because I'm going to be a good dude instead." And I think Qui-Gon would have encouraged Anakin in all the right ways and, allowed his personality to thrive without, becoming manipulated by the dark side. And I mean, as hard as Obi-Wan tried, you see at the beginning of Attack of the Clones, their relationship is not where, you'd want it to be when you're a angsty young teen. He's gaining power. He's got more responsibility now. And, he's just not really mature by the time of the Clone Wars, not mature enough to handle all that responsibility and the weight of the universe on his shoulders. And it's too much pressure for him.
Obi-Wan is that he's totally drinking all that Kool-Aid. He just bought in to all the dogmatic ways. He's that kid at the end of class who's like, teacher, teacher, did you forget to give us homework?
Oh,
That's Obi-Wan. That is totally Obi-Wan. And he doesn't know he's being obnoxious. He's got no idea. But that's Obi-Wan. And Hayden, Anakin, I should say. He's that guy that's just like, what do I need to do to get a C? So I can go do everything else. Like that's Anakin. And I rock with him for it. I'm way more of an Anakin fan than I am an Obi-Wan fan. I always have been. And like everyone loves Ewan McGregor and Obi-Wan. And as I was a kid, I was like, really? He's kind of boring.
boring.
Yeah.
I think he's very distinct between all three of the prequels, you know. So I don't want to. I can't make a broad categorization like that. Like he's in episode one,
Right.
you see, you know, with Qui-Gon, he's chill, he's fun, he's cracking jokes, you know, he's
Yeah.
young and passionate, and obviously, you know, you see some of his backstory filled in. He had a fling with Sabine. He even would have left the Jedi Order for her. So I guess that's not necessarily Ewan. That's not the prequels. That's the Clone Wars that did all of that for Obi-Wan. But
I
he's
think
cool
I
in
think
episode 3
we're
again.
I think we're in this segment of the show.
Don't be too proud of this podcast you've constructed. The ability to rank content is insignificant next to the power of an exceptional hot take.
It's hot takes time. And you know what I'm saying? Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's just kind of boring.
Oh no.
Look, his dialogue's good. He has his moments. His moment on Mustafar, and I'm not saying anything negative about Ewan McGregor, so no one please wait in my
My
bushes.
husband you're talking about.
Listen, my guy. Obi-Wan Kenobi is a boring rule follower who that's the whole point in his show, right? He had this world. He's like, all you have to do is get A's and your life is good. And then this kid comes along and breaks everything he knows. And he's just like completely broken. And then he sees Leia and like, oh, it's not all about the Jedi Order. It's about hope and life and moving things forward. And now I need to start seeing things the way Qui-Gon saw them. And sure, he changes. That arc, by the way, when Obi-Wan, the show ends and he's like going to walk with Qui-Gon, I'm like, that's where you should have started the show. That was so much more interesting than the entire show. Like, you should have started with this Vader fight. Then he trains with Qui-Gon and he helps everybody else. And he's like, all right, I got to lay low. Like, you don't need this climactic ending. But man, they finally had an opportunity to make the character a bit more interesting. And they didn't do anything with it. Now, I will say the other scene I loved with him was, I mean, it's only in Revenge of the Sith that I enjoy anything with him. It's definitely the scene on Mustafar and the scene with General Grievous. That's about it. That's all I really cared about with Obi-Wan Kenobi.
The only thing you cared about? Oh my
Not
goodness.
anything. Oh, and I also
is a
love
hot take.
Woo! From A New Hope, and comes out like I love that. I thought that was funny. He's charming in A New Hope. There's not really anything else to him at that point, though. Like, I mean, I do appreciate Alec Guinness Obi-Wan over Ewan McGregor, excluding Episode 3.
I don't even know where to begin. I disagree with every single word you just said.
Yeah.
I think Obi-Wan is by far the most got the most diversity between his performances, and that, I mean, yeah, he's a rule follower. He's kind of, I mean, he's responsible. But he owes his loyalty to his friends, not necessarily exclusively to the Jedi Order. And he's totally okay with Anakin and Padme having a thing. He would have left the Jedi Order for some. I think that's the most interesting character point of his. That I keep going back to that, but
I'm strictly talking movies, not Clone Wars TV show.
Movies and the Kenobi show.
Yes, that's fair. I was excluding.
So Ewan McGregor.
Yes.
Saying Ewan McGregor is boring.
Look, I've seen Ewan in other stuff. He's a talented actor, so I'm not saying that at all. I am saying
so is Natalie Portman, but she's horrible in Attack of the Clones.
Yeah, Natalie Portman is a fantastic actress, and she is not great. And a lot of it has to do with her lines. Not great. in anything prequel related. Same with Samuel L. Jackson. Terrific actor.
Seeing a common theme here?
Yeah.
Maybe it's not just the
like,
actors, but maybe it's just like, not the
that's
best
why I think
directing.
Hayden Christensen did a good job with those lines because everyone hates on him, but I'm like, he's one of the only ones here giving emotion.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And
And it's
actually,
raw.
that kind of brings me exactly to my hot take. We both had kind of episode 2 related hot takes. You mind if I go into mine before?
Go
I mean,
for
we
it.
can finish yours up if you want to play the
I
sound.
already-
I vehemently disagree.
I figured. What's yours?
My hot take is that, okay, overall, the romance in episode 2 only has like a couple of awkward scenes and like awkward deliveries. Like most of it's actually passable at worst. But the "I don't like sand" line is not cringe. In fact, that line is actually incredibly well crafted. "I don't like sand. It's coarse, it's rough, irritating, and it gets everywhere." What follows right after is cringe, which is when he touches her bare back, and and then just like, I mean, she apparently was into it because she accepted the kiss. But I mean, the "I don't like sand" meme it's a little memed on too hard.
I don't have any problem with the line itself, so I'm with you there. It's about what that represents. that scene, which that scene isn't even like the most cringe. The most cringe is like
The fireplace.
the fireplace,
Yeah.
by far. Like, I'm haunted by the kiss. You should now. To be fair, can I just say, like, everyone that's like, "Oh, that's so like cringe." First off, everybody, I don't want this footage because that would also be cringe and boring. But could you imagine if someone filmed what you think are your most romantic moments of your life? Like, let's go ahead and say there was someone there, that was hired to be your professional videographer, and you're like, "Oh, remember this really sweet moment on the cruise?" I bet you if that was filmed, you'd be like, "Oh,
I'm such a creep."
not."
Yeah.
Very few of us are suave, and that's why they have to hire intimacy coordinators for these movies and shows. So when I see someone and it is cringe and I feel cringe, I'm not super against it because I feel like if you were just plopped in the middle of someone's like weird romantic moment, you'd feel that way. You'd be like, "Oh, I don't want to be here. This is..." Maybe you want to be there. I wouldn't want to be there. I'd be like, "I want to get out of here. Don't want to be a fly on the wall in this moment. This is creepy." Padme, call if you need help, I guess. I don't know.
They had guards around, I'm sure.
I'm sure
someone knows. I mean, also, yeah, this episode got me thinking about at what point did 3PO find out? Because he knows in Revenge of the Sith, but it seems like they're still hiding it in this episode, in the Senate spy episode. She's like, "Oh, you can go now, 3PO." So I want to see that episode, that deleted scene where 3PO finds out or he catches them kissing or something.
Man, yeah, there's a lot of weird intimacy in this episode, and like, I thought it was weird too how. So yes, I agree with you. Like, that line itself is not that cringy, but also, can we just talk about for a second? Like, there was a couple of things that are just hypersexualized in this episode. Again, super weird because it's a kids show. Well, one, I'm sorry, but they made the droids in this extremely curvy.
Oh yeah, like, those droids they offended me.
They were
no.
I wasn't like offended. I wasn't for it. I wasn't against it. It was something I noticed. I'm like, well, that exists. Very small waist, very large other areas. I'm like, okay, this is very all right. Y'all are putting lots of stuff out there. Good for you.
I mean, I'm very pro droid, but at some point we gotta regulate.
It's weird. It's just weird. It's like, why are you sexualizing a droid? That's very strange. Next thing was Padme's outfit. I'm like, y'all are just really jumping into these like two-piece things, and
the sleeves are literally completely disconnected. They're just hanging onto her arms.
Yeah, and I was like, it's like an NBA athlete or something. Yeah, and in the moment, like, yeah, they do a zoom in shot on her back or whatever. Like, I was just like, oh, this is weird for a kids show. Now I think it tames off after, like, I don't know what point it does start taming off, but there's a lot of that where I'm like, yeah, the modelers for this kind of weird animation choices here. So anyway, that's all I want to. all I want to say about that was thought that was a bit strange when we've brought it up multiple times the first season. I thought it got more mild season 2. Nah, it
Not so
was
far.
no, they're everywhere. I mean, I don't know, maybe they were just banking on Natalie Portman fans just watching this show. They're like, we got to get him somehow.
They got to top something about. Yeah, they keep trying to compete with Attack of the Clones and they just can't. Like the fashion in that movie is just insane. The costume design on all of her dresses on Naboo, like the flowery, like the one with all the neon colors, incredible. And this dress was obviously an attempt to come close to, you know, reeling in that kind of same attention. But the fashion design is just incredible.
Oh, yeah. They were trying to target like all of the kids who watched Attack of the Clones. They're like, hey, remember when that whatever cat tiger thing perfectly carved a crop top? Like, hey, remember that? Like, just keep watching this. And same thing. I'm like, man, that's wild. Like, that's wild. It's one thing if it's for adults, who cares? Or just general audiences even. But when it's for kids, I'm like, that's weird. That's strange. Anyway, any other show? Not even something I'm bringing up or noting, but did note it here. So, but as we have here in the comments, says Naboo is nothing but romance. So,
except for the giant take. What's not romantic about trying to impress your crush by standing on a large animal? Have you never just gone to a field and stood on top of a moving cow?
Oh my God.
Impress someone?
You are from Texas. I was, for a second I was thought you were gonna say Longhorn, and I'm like, wow, he is just all amped up.
I can't stop thinking about the Longhorns, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. God, KG, aren't you from Alabama? I think so.
Yeah. Wow. Maybe we got a rematch coming up for the football playoffs.
I don't know. In the South, though, somewhere in that belt that reads the Bible. So
it's all the same.
Yeah, except Texas. Why aren't you Texans in the Bible Belt? What'd you do?
I don't know. We just do our own thing.
It was like progressing, and all these people were in, and then it hit Austin, and they were just like, you know what? They're like, we're going to create all these different churches. They're like, you know what? Now this is the Bible Belt stays on this side, right over here.
It's not Austin. Yeah.
No. This is you left conservative Christianity a long time ago, Austin, Texas. You can't.
Yeah, it's like 20 minutes that way.
Like, if you want the Bible Belt, it's that way. I'm like, oh,
doesn't
thanks, Austin.
It doesn't take long.
I do like Austin, even though it's probably the worst traffic. When I try to get down to San Antonio, passing through your town,
it's the worst. Today was the worst traffic I've ever experienced in my life. Yeah.
Dude, every time I go through, I have to like think. I'm like, okay, I'm going to San Antonio. What time am I going to hit Austin? I never have to do that for any other. OKC, I didn't have to think about it. But
who lives there? Is that a real city?
Oklahoma City?
I've never even been past Dallas, so I
got
no need.
You're that Texan. There's so many Texans like that too. Like, I've never left. Why would I? You have left Texas.
HEB is right down the street. What are we talking
about? Why would I? What else is there? It's so funny because, like, in Nebraska, there's a lot of things where people like people are like in San Diego, they're like, hey, why don't you just like move? And I'm like, it does look really pretty, but the cost of living. And I actually know a story of someone whose like car broke down in Nebraska, and then like they never left. Like, they didn't die. They like still live here, and they're doing things, and things are great for them. But it's like the Midwest, especially Nebraska, it's like this big snuggie. And once you're in and you're on that couch, you never
fall asleep.
Yeah, you're like, this is comfortable. Is it like sexy? No. But you don't have to work as hard. You can have a really nice house. And if you can put up with hot summers and cold winters, you know, the 2 weeks of spring and fall they're great. They make it all worth it. So just like watching the Clone Wars, if you can just put through a lot of seasons of garbage, there's some nice moments in there.
Yeah, if only I was able to have the foresight to peek ahead at the next episode that I was so excited for. I'll have a lot more insight about that next time.
Yeah.
The Battle of Geonosis. This is when Block
We have a
pilot episode
topic.
takes place. So
We have a topic calendar. You've got it. You have no excuse.
I just used my assumptions instead, and that doesn't
Yeah.
always work out for
You
me.
know what? You can't spell. You know what's you know what 3
Yeah.
letters are in assumptions?
Gumption. No, it just rhymes. That's not.
That was a boss told me that. It was like this is like this guy was definitely, I don't know, he was that dad who had a saying for everything, and I was like, yeah, I assumed, and he's like, you can't spell assume without ass. Don't be one. Yeah, I was like, all right, yeah, fair enough.
Well, good point. Good point. Always double check.
Ryan, you're not an ass. No. I think if anything else, you're too thick-headed when it comes to Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's all it is.
Was just fixated. Yeah.
I'm pretty stunned that people. It's weird that I grew older and all these people had an affinity for Obi-Wan, because when I was a kid, like, none of us wanted his action figure.
What?
Nobody wanted Obi-Wan Kenobi's action figure. He was like the rule-following nerd.
He was the nerd.
Yeah, no one wanted to be Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I mean, when I grew up, no one else liked Star Wars, so I don't know really how to judge. I liked Obi-Wan Kenobi, though, and I'll take that to the grave. I think he's just a perfect example of a Jedi.
All right, so if Obi-Wan Kenobi were to live in the U.S., what state is he probably from?
I feel like if he were to live like in our world, I feel like he'd be kind of like a hipster. Like, he's got his clean beard shave and his, his nice like hair, like in episode 3 look. I think he lived in Oregon.
No, that's way too loose. The dude's, if he's a hipster, he's that like buttoned up one that probably has like a VP somewhere, because he was not adventurous enough to like take the reins and start his own company, but he totally worked up, where he's somewhere doing something. He's probably the head of some like IT department.
He's not that boring of a character.
My dad was the director of IT. How dare you?
Oh no, I knew I was gonna offend someone. Canceled.
My dad did score in like the 93rd percentile for math and does not have a flair for personality. But anyway.
You said it, not me. I don't know your dad.
I'm more like my mom. So I would say, I feel like maybe he's not an IT guy, but he's totally, I don't know. He's a VP somewhere. Like, he's worked up the corporate ranks and his career matters to him. So many times he knows something's not right, but he'll look aside. He's like, all right, as long as it's not a problem, I'm not going to do anything about it, but I'm really about this Jedi Order. And I don't know, for that reason, I just feel like he's in some big city. He's probably an East Coast guy.
East Coast.
Yeah, he's definitely not West Coast. He's not, I mean, where would he be from West? He's not that chill, is the thing. He doesn't have that
chill. I think.
I mean, he's not like
he's with responsibilities. Yeah, he's probably a bit more uptight. I don't know, but then once when his kid grows up and is cool enough to hang out with, like in episode 3, then he's actually way cool.
He's from Connecticut, man. Let's just face it. He goes, listen, he's from Connecticut. Here's why. Oh, we have comments saying Arizona. I don't know. I say Connecticut because the dude's probably got a lot of money. He's worked up. He's somewhere. Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if he's like a financial planner as well, by the way. Very buttoned up. He's a part of some firm. He's like a top planner there or something. He's got a nice house. He's got his very specific 9-to-5. He does help people with his job, right? Help people plan for retirement. And it doesn't get that crazy outside of that, makes his money, goes home to his family. That's his thing. But he's also been able to like move up the ladder. You're not too far from the big city if you ever get called in. He's from Connecticut.
I don't know. Maybe it's just because this is my fantasy, but I just picture him living in a tiny house and owning a little coffee shop in Oregon. Maybe that's just how I want to settle down.
I feel like a lot of people want to imagine Obi-Wan that way, and I don't think that's, unless he's forced into hiding on Tatooine. I don't think he's living in isolation or chilling out there. And someone else said Massachusetts.
All those states are the same to me. I've
Oh, the
never
East
even
Coast.
come close to,
He's
that
definitely
coast.
that. Whereas Anakin, dude, Anakin could live wherever.
He's
He's just that guy. We all
He's a
know that
nomad.
guy.
Yeah, he lives in a van. Actually, he just travels and
Yeah.
surfs.
We exactly. He travels, he serves, he's got a bike. That's how he typically gets around. He's been to all the places that you're just like, why would you go there? He's like, because it's fun. And you're just like, we've all probably met that guy in our lives. And that's Anakin. Takes a bunch of risks, has way more stories than you do at the party, but everyone's like, don't actually like hang out with him though. Like
He's psycho. He's actually just ready to beat people up.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. He's definitely there's something there in his past. He's definitely military as well. Like he didn't like, he was like, oh, go to college. Why? I could see action. I could do this and that. There's benefits. I'll come back and you know,
I can see
and
that.
he comes back. He's got a really nice car. You're like, oh, okay. Like that's Anakin. And then he got out. There's no dishonorable discharge or anything. He just did his time, and now he's having fun, enjoying life.
Just chilling out, maxing.
And then
cool.
he found someone who's like really important, and then he just like, that's a sugar mama, and she's just like, he's hot, and that's Anakin's life, and that's, I don't know, I feel like he's got an easier time of that in California.
I could see him being a beach bum, yeah, by choice.
Yeah. What about, all right? I mean, I think Yoda's just some retirement home in Arizona.
Louisiana. No, Yoda's just built for Louisiana. That's basically Dagobah.
All right. Yeah,
that's where he chose to go to be with nature.
I just see him as like, how like in like Pirates of the Caribbean and like the Princess and the Frog with Mama Odie, and there's like there's some there's someone doing voodoo out there in the swamp. That's Yoda. Like, you gotta go see here. It's just like a little gremlin there with potions and stuff. Yeah. That's Yoda. All right, we got him. Who else do we need to move down the list on from Star Wars? I mean, we got time for one more character.
One more character to just place where they live in the United States?
Yes.
Let's place Admiral Tarkin.
Whoa.
Give you a hard one.
Admiral Tarkin, not Grand Moff Tarkin.
Oh, yeah, I forget. Yeah, he's Admiral in the Clone Wars, isn't he? Okay, Grand Moff Tarkin, yes.
That's such a tough one because I don't feel like we know enough about him. He could live.
Maybe let's stick with Admiral Tarkin, actually. Yeah, let's stick with the young version of him. I feel like that might be a little easier.
That's so tough. I mean, I just feel like he's this just generic guy.
Generic? I don't know if he's generic or if he's just completely unlikable. I think he's just like that obnoxious neighbor that's always trying to one-up you by getting like, a car that's a year newer and, painting his house right after you paint yours. He's always looking for attention, always trying to, climb the ladder. He's always backbiting in the office, trying to just, scrape to get by, do whatever it takes to get that grind on.
Yeah. All right. You sold me on that. Because I can't let this episode go by without mentioning Tamara Morrison in this, I do think you would see Django in Wyoming, in the middle of nowhere, bunch of land. Yeah.
Oh yeah, isn't that what he does?
Yeah,
I mean that too.
That's like his vibe. He's like, I'm gonna be like here in the middle of nowhere with a bunch of land
and play guitar and sing folk music. Yeah.
Yes. And then like when the sheriff brings in a bounty on a guy, I go in. What is it they say in Django Unchained? She's like, I see that man, I kill that man, I bring him in, I get the bounty, and then I take it in and I get compensation. It's a job. That's exactly how he would describe it to Jamie Foxx. So anyway, all right. Well, that's this week's episode of Duel of the Rings. If you like our show, oh my gosh, KG says he's got get off my lawn vibes.
We're talking about Tarkin still, I think.
I was gonna say, I don't know if Django. I would be very nervous if Django said, "Get off my lawn."
I would get off his lawn.
Can you imagine that? You're just walking on his lawn. Get off my lawn. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm not a little boy any longer. Well, okay. I don't know where that came from, But we're getting off the lawn. Not little boy. My bad. Anyway, we'll be back next week with Amanda. It should be a lot of fun. Go to dueloftheranks.com if you want more stuff. We got more stuff there. Eventually, we're gonna get to editing the episodes. We've got this is like the third one, Brian. We've not been putting them out.
We'll get there.
We're gonna get there, everyone.
We're so close.
We're so close. We're gonna get them out. That'll happen, and then you can consume them. But until then, you can still find them on the YouTube channel. They exist there too. So watch them live. We're a top 3% podcast. We don't even put out episodes anymore. Look at us. Like, what are we doing with ourselves? We're too big for our britches. So you need to hire somebody to do audio editing. That's what we need to do. We need a sponsor first. We actually need to go find a sponsor.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, someone give us money and we'll pay someone to put out audio on time.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right, y'all. Hey, thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. And we'll be back next week for more Duel of the Ranks with Amanda. Adios. Ow.